So now I'm going to show you the other part of my two-guitar arrangement of Ludwig van Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata, a piano piece he composed around 1803. My arrangement is two guitars. One is playing the slow arpeggios, which we've already covered, and that represents the left-hand piano part. Now I'm taking the melody, this beautifully haunting, sparse melody, and arranging it for a classic British hard rock style lead guitar with plenty of distortion and sustain and lots of string bends. And the main inspiration for this is David Gilmour of Pink Floyd. In fact, I call this Shine on You Crazy Moon, a study in feeling and control, because it's all about, using your ears and using your hands to bend those notes just up to the right pitch and give them a good, sexy shake, a nice, even measured vibrato. And you want to dial in a good tone for that. Use your bridge pickup and plenty of gain, distortion, overdrive, and some hall reverb, maybe a little bit of delay, give it that epic, big sound. So here it is. Here's the first part of it. Okay, so we're doing these bends and muting and raking and bending and shaking into that first note. So we're at the 7th fret on the B string. And I'm going to lay my index finger across the middle 4th string so I can get that grace note, that pitchless, percussive, rake into that first bend. And I'm going to use my ring finger to bend the string, but I'm going to support it 1 fret lower with the middle finger at the 6th fret. So even though it says 7, it's 7 and 6 working together, and the thumb is going to hook over the top here to give you some leverage. So that first bend in bar 5. Okay, that was the first 2 bends. Now to get that vibrato, that's the king of all vibratos, if you ask me, because you're dipping slightly below the note, which sounds more, to me, it sounds more vocal-like and expressive than if I were to go, say. The only way to really get the vibrato, a finger vibrato on a guitar, is to modulate slightly above the pitch, unless you do like a classical thing where you're going, which is really hard to do because the frets kind of, prevent that violin type of, or slide type of vibrato. So. you want to get that target pitch. In this case, it's a whole step. So do that a few times, and then try to recreate that. The shake, the all-important shake here is you bend it up to target pitch, G sharp, and you're only going down about a quarter tone. See how the wrist is kind of like moving? Very important, also very helpful, is to have a lot of distortion, a lot of gain, because that'll give you the sustain that you will need in order to hear it, because this is all based on like biofeedback, right? What your ears are hearing is telling your hands what to do, and the muscle memory and the auditory memory are working together. And if you don't have enough gain, if you try to say do this with a clean sound, I've seen this happen so many times with myself and other people, you end up trying to get your shakes in real quick before the note decays. You end up going, say if I'm using a quiet tone, you know, you get that it's too fast because you're trying to get in those 6 or 7 or 8 shakes before the note dies. So give yourself plenty of gain. You can stay there. That's a great way to train yourself. You know, even if you use like a device like a Sustainiac or something, that would be the ultimate way to train yourself, right? So we continue here in bar 7. Now we're going to go 1.5 steps, bending them from F sharp up to A. So that's the equivalent of 3 frets. A big bend, overbend. And then we pull off, you know, we bend up to A, pull off, hammer on, and then up to a whole step again to G sharp. Nice and legato, right? And then we're going to shift back 2 frets because I want to use this same reinforced fingering. This is in the second half of bar 8. That's an old move, classic rock, hard rock thing, is to bend up, tap on, shake it with the right hand, and I pulled off the tap to not the 5th fret, but the 4th fret. The 4th fret note caught the pull off. And then bend it up half step to E. I'm only using my middle finger here. I could reinforce it with an index finger, but half step bends are much easier. You don't need as much strength, push pressure. So that's using the thumb again, get that nice even vibrato. And then we do this natural harmonics in bar 9 and 10. It's like Daisy Confused, Jimmy Page, right? In the beginning, Daisy Confused. And I'm making a vibrato there because the harmonics, doing the old bend the headstock trick. You know, I'm pushing against this very gently. I don't want to break my guitar. Then pushing against this. You don't want to do it too much either because you could crack your neck. Then you would be really sorry you ever even tried that. Or you could use a whammy bar if you have a whammy bar, right? And then we're going to go down to the 6th fret. Same thing, mute rig, bend and shake. Bar 12. I caught the G string there. Okay, that's a pre-bend. You're going to use your muscle memory there. You know exactly how much push pressure to apply to achieve that whole step. And another 1.5 step bend here in bar 13. Whole step bend. Shake it out. That's like a Albert King, right? Or like Lenny Kravitz, you know? That's a vibrato off of an unbent note there in bar 15. That sounds pretty mean though, right? I mean, you know, and it's also gives you no variation. You're actually going above the pitch. And now we're going to go way up here. Most of these bends are on the B string, by the way. That one was on the G, but that's only a half step. And a pre-bend, a whole step. So you really, it's like you're going. Just a half step. Easier to do, then less push pressure applied. But again, to get the vibrato, you want to dip down about a quarter tone. And then continuing bar 17, another rake. Whole step, pre-bend. Rake into a half step bend. Pre-bend half step. And down a fret. Now again, this is like the one you're doing here. It's a vibrato on an unbent note, so it gives a nice contrast. And then bar 21, half step bend. That kind of reminds me of Gilmour's playing in his time solo, right? So you were at the 7th fret, half step, then down to the 5th fret, whole step bend with that whole mute rake bend and shake thing. We got to pull off down to the 2nd fret. You got to get a little stretch there between ring finger and index. So obviously Beethoven didn't have that. That's a blues rock thing, right? So that's my liberty with the melody. That's a vibrato on an unbent note, so I'm just pushing the string upward that way a little bit. And we go up to the 12th fret here in bar 23. Now bar 25, this is interesting. We go half step, pre-bend. And a slick little legato move there. You're trying to keep it going without picking the string again. So bar 25, whole step, pre-bend. And use the vibrato to help you with the sustain. That's pretty cool. Bar 27, it's a 1.5 step pre-bend. So you do the whole step, shake it, and I just pulled off. I wanted to get a legato sound there, so I didn't want to pick the string again. So that's the only unsupported bend. It's strictly with the middle finger. But guess what? You're at the most advantageous spot on a guitar for performing a bend, which is at the 12th fret on the B string. 12th fret has the least amount of tension in it because it's a midway between the nut and the bridge. And it's like when Archer pulls the bow to shoot an arrow, it's like he grabs it in that midpoint of the string, right? That's where there's the least amount of tension. And plus the B string has less tension relative to its pitch than the E string. Is tighter. It's harder to bend. So, and it's only a half step, so it's not that big of a deal. A whole step would be a little more painful. You make that grimace on your face, right? And then the arpeggios take over for an interlude. Then in the next segment, I'll show you the conclusion of this solo.